confident, we should be comfortable debating it and discussing it and passing it into law. That's what we're doing here. I'm supporting this resolution because I support the legislative process envisioned and mandated by the U.S. Constitution, and I urge each of my colleagues to do the same. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
The senior senator from Delaware is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm compelled to rise in opposition today to this resolution, which would block the EPA's Good Neighbor Clean Air Rule from being implemented. Before I talk about the real-world impacts that would result if we block this new clean air rule, I'd like to go back in time 21 years ago when this body debated the last major update to the Clean Air Act. That day, we weren't debating how to weaken or delay our clean air laws. We were considering legislation, bipartisan legislation, that would improve our clean air laws and make them stronger. 89 senators approved the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990. Republican President George Herbert Walker Bush signed them into law, and we're all the better for it. I believe that we can protect our environment and grow our economy at the same time. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990 are great examples of just that. For every dollar we spend installing new pollution controls and cleaning up our air, we've seen $30 return in reduced health care costs, better workplace productivity, and saved lives. In other words, for 4 decades, fewer people have gotten sick and missed work because of the Clean Air Act. Just last year, it's estimated that 160,000 people's lives were saved from the Clean Air Act protections that are in place today. And here's some more good news. Our economy didn't take a slide because of these protections either. Quite the opposite. Since former President Bush signed the bipartisan Clean Air Act amendments of 1990 into law, electricity rates have stayed constant, and our economy has grown by 60%. Despite the successes, more needs to be done. We know more today than we did 20 or 30 years ago about how pollution impairs our health. We know even more about how pollution travels from one state to another. We know more about how to curb that pollution in ways that make sense and are cost-effective. My state of Delaware has made great strides in cleaning up its own air pollution, investing millions in clean air technology. Unfortunately, air pollution knows no state boundaries and easily drifts from state to state. Delaware, like many East Coast states, sits at the end of what I call America's tailpipe. That means most of the pollution in Delaware isn't caused by sources in my state. It's caused mainly by sources in Ohio or Indiana or other states in the Midwest. In fact, 90% of Delaware's air pollution comes from beyond our borders. As governor of Delaware, I could have shut down our entire state economy. We would still have been out of attainment in public health standards. This is pollution we need our neighbors to clean up. And unfortunately, that hasn't always happened. Sadly, many of our upwind neighbors have not invested heavily enough in new clean air technologies. Some states have even built smaller smokestacks so the pollution would fall on neighboring states, keeping their air clean and making our air dirty. At the end of the day, downwind states can spend millions of dollars to clean up their act, but unless we require upwind states to make serious reductions, then states like mine won't get much healthier and people will continue to get sick and die. For all Delawareans and all the others who are living at the end of that tailpipe, I say enough is enough. The EPA and the courts agree. This is why the EPA has implemented this cross-state air pollution rule. This rule follows the intent and the direction of the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990. It ensures that all of us do our fair share to reduce air pollution. That's the way it ought to be. Like my colleagues, I try to live my life by the golden rule, treat other people the way we want to be treated. That's why this rule is fair. My state, my neighboring states, shouldn't have to suffer because other states aren't required to clean up their act at our expense. And furthermore, if you ignore the fairness and equity arguments for the cross-state air pollution rule, it's still a no-brainer because the cost-to-benefit ratio of these new protections is overwhelming. This rule will save up to 34,000 lives this year. That's roughly the number of people that fit into Fenway Park for a Red Sox game. All these great benefits will be negated if this resolution passes. To my friends who are thinking about voting for this resolution, let me just ask you this. What if the prevailing winds of this country were blowing, instead of from west to east, from east to west? And what if those of us who live along the East Coast from Virginia to Maine chose to operate older, dirtier coal-fired electric plants? And what if we built tall smokestacks that sent the harmful emissions coming from our plants upward into the air to be carried away to regions only to end up in the air breathed by people living in the areas to our west? And what if by operating these older, dirtier power plants, we lowered the cost of electricity along the East Coast while raising it for our neighbors in the Midwest? And what if by operating these older, dirtier power plants, we decreased the health care costs associated with dirty air for Americans living along the East Coast while increasing health care costs for Americans living in the Midwest? I'll tell you what they'd say. They'd say it's unfair. They'd say we shouldn't be able to get away with polluting their communities year after year. They'd say somebody should right this wrong. They'd say, haven't you heard about the golden rule that admonishes to treat all others the way we want to be treated? They'd say, enough is enough. Here are the facts. The technology exists to end this scourge of pollution. Utilities all around the country have already installed it. In doing so, they put tens of thousands of people to work, including hundreds in my home state of Delaware. The utilities have the money. We have a trained workforce that wants to do the work. We just need to act. A clean environment and a strong economy can go hand in hand. We don't have to choose between one or the other. Join me in defeating this proposal. Give your neighbors who live in my part of the country, our part of the country, give their kids, their grandparents, air to breathe that won't send them home from school or work, or off to an emergency room or into a hospital, or worse yet, take their lives. Please join me. Vote no against this motion to proceed to the resolution. Thank you, Mr. President.
The junior senator from Texas is recognized.
Mr. President, I yield myself 5 minutes.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. President, Texas has some of the most highly industrialized and populated areas in the nation, and air quality in these and other areas of the state is improving, and we actually are making very positive steps toward reduction of pollutants. For example, ozone has been reduced by 27% across our state since 2000, and nitrogen oxide, a precursor to ozone formation, has been reduced by 58% over roughly the same period of time. But I rise in support of this resolution because it represents regulatory overreach and an abuse of power. This rule, when it takes effect January the 1st, will significantly harm grid reliability, destroy jobs, and raise electricity prices for consumers living on a fixed income and for businesses we're depending upon to create jobs here in our country. The reason why this rule is an abuse of power as regards the state of Texas, we were not included in the rule when the Environmental Protection Agency first proposed it. But then suddenly, miraculously, we were included in the final rule. Having less than a year ago concluded that Texas emissions have no significant downwind effects, the EPA has reversed course and included us in this rule without the opportunity to challenge the claim, without fair notice. The EPA has mandated that Texas slash SO2 emissions by half and greatly reduce NOx emissions in less than 5 months, an unprecedented and impossible timetable to comply with. The standard time frame for permitting and constructing and installing new emissions controls is several years. But as a result of this abuse of power by the Environmental Protection Agency, and without due process and fair notice and the opportunity to be heard, this rule is being imposed on my state, and already one power producer has announced that 500 jobs will be lost. The integrity of our state grid is at risk. Our grid operator has said that as a result of the unprecedented heat wave and the historic drought that Texas has been experiencing, that if we had had these rules in place last summer, we would have experienced rolling outages during August when people were relying on their air conditioner to deal with triple-digit temperatures. This would have meant rolling blackouts, businesses forced to cut back, hardship, even a threat to the safety of many of our senior citizens. I visited some of those seniors in Houston, Texas recently, and of course many of them are on a fixed income. They can't afford to pay more for their electricity bills. They're struggling to pay their bills already right now. And they sure don't want to have to experience the potential hardship or public safety hazard of having a brownout or a blackout or outage should they need their heat during the winter or their air conditioning during the summer. The EPA has said, well, we got it approximately right, but we're going to make some revisions. But revisions are not enough. The EPA recently corrected errors to modeling assumptions and corresponding emissions budgets for several of the states under the rule, but other mistakes remain. Haste makes waste. We know that's true. Why can't the EPA do it the right way? Give us some time, notice, an opportunity to be heard so we can get this done right. The EPA overestimates base generation capacity for our grid by 20,000 megawatts. This estimate includes 100% of Texas's installed wind generation, as though wind power is always available. Our electric grid derates wind generation to 8.7% due to its unpredictability and reliability as a generation source. Put simply, the wind does not blow 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. This estimate also includes power plants that are currently retired and mothballed. So the EPA got it wrong, but their answer when we say, please give us a chance to show you the facts and to show you the science that would help make our air more clean but not kill jobs and create hardship for our senior citizens and those on fixed incomes, and they said, tough luck. Tough luck. Our only recourse, Mr. President, is to support a resolution like this one, because we cannot get fundamental fairness from this agency of the federal government when it comes to my state. And so I support the rule, and I would yield the floor, reserve the balance of our time.
Mr. President,
Senator from California is
how much
recognized.
time remains on each side, please?
The Republicans have 1.5 minutes. The Democratic side has 16 minutes and 10 seconds.
Thank you. Mr. President, we've heard the same theme over and over again from our Republican friends, which is we need time. Give us time. The EPA is rushing this. Well, how much time do you need to fix a problem that's forcing children to put on these inhalers? How much time do you need to enforce a rule that is keeping people from dying prematurely, that is keeping them from getting heart attacks? Here's the deal. In 1997, several states went to the EPA and said, something is really wrong here. We got kids like this gasping for air, and the air pollution isn't coming from our state. It's coming from the states to the west of us. Now, I want to make it clear. My state, California, doesn't have, a dog in this fight. We're not involved in this. We don't pollute. We don't have a lot of coal power plants, and we're in the far west. And frankly, having that ocean along our state helps us. We've got plenty of air pollution, but we're not getting it from another state to our west. So I stand here speaking, frankly, as a United States Senator who cares about clean air, who cares about the public health, and also sees this as a moral issue. And I have said this every way I can say it. It is immoral to take poison and put it on someone else's front yard. It is immoral to walk away from your responsibility, particularly if you have a truck to pick it up and take it away. Well, we have the technology to make cleaner utilities, to make cleaner power. And as my friend Tom Carper so eloquently stated, clean tech creates jobs. So we have the technology, we have the ability to create jobs, cleaning up the environment. We have an ability to make sure fewer children like this beautiful child don't have to resort to inhalers if we just clean up our power plants. And we have the ability to do that. The other time is crying. We need time. That's all we need is time. Well, I think 14 years is enough time. And then in 2005, the court said again how important it was. to do this. So they knew about this in '97, they knew about it in '05, and now they're crying bitter tears, and they want to continue to dump poison in states next door. This is just the tip of the iceberg of the Republican Party's desire to repeal important health and safety regulations. The American people do not agree with it. Let me show you a poll that was taken just last month in terms of where people stand. I'll get it. Here it is. This cross-state air pollution rule is very popular with the people of this country because they see it very clearly. I think when we were kids, our moms always said, clean up your room. You know, you owe it to the rest of the family, clean up your room. Polluters have to clean up their room. Polluters can't just pollute at will and, as Senator Carper says, build these big smokestacks and blow that pollution over to, in this case, 38 other states and hurt the people in those states. That is not the American way. What Senator Paul is doing is the height of irresponsibility. And I want to put the picture back of that child again. How is it responsible to allow the pollution to go on and on and on when you have the technology developed to stop it, and when it is moving out of your state and going to another state and harming children like this?
Senator from California, yield for a
I'd be
question.
happy to leave.
First, I'd like to thank the Senator for her leadership on this issue, and I'd like to direct a question through the chair. I noticed earlier that Senator Paul, who is asking for us to basically eliminate the standard of protection when it comes to air pollution that crosses state boundaries, if I'm not mistaken, his resolution would eliminate this standard. There would be none.
It would.
And if I'm not mistaken as well, he's made an argument on the floor that this has no direct impact on asthma and pulmonary disease, even producing a chart to that effect. I'd like to ask the senator from California, because I visited an emergency room hospital, one of the children's hospitals in Chicago, and the emergency room physician said to me, do you know what the #1 reason is that children show up in emergency rooms? And I said, fall off their bicycles, you know, trauma? No, asthma. Asthma. And she said, Senator, I will have young people come into this emergency room who are fighting for breath, saying, I'm asthmatic and I can't breathe, and I watch as they die in front of me. Yes. That is the reality of asthma. This just isn't an inconvenience. It is life-threatening. And I'd like to ask the senator from California, on what basis could any senator say there's no connection between air pollution, soot, and the particles in the air, and pulmonary disease and asthma?
Mr. President, I'll be happy to answer that question.
I'll direct the question to the senator from California.
Yes.
I don't know what the time frame is, but happy to have your response.
I will respond on my time. The senator can respond on his. Let me tell you something. As far as I know, we do not have one person in this Senate who is a physician with a degree in lung specialty, thoracic specialty, cardiovascular specialty. And therefore, we need to look to those people. You're right. When you go to the hospital and talk to physicians, they will tell you about children dying in their arms. I've seen that testimony. I've heard it in front of our committee. The fact is, this rule will prevent 400,000 cases of aggravated asthma attacks and 1.8 million lost work and school days. This is factual. So I just want to say that hearing people come on this floor questioning whether there's questioning whether there's an association between soot in the air and asthma attacks, questioning that, frankly, it's, to me, unimaginable. And we have all of the health organizations who disagree with Senator Paul on that.
I'd like to ask another question through the chair of the senator from California. So 2 weeks ago, I went to the University of Illinois Children's Hospital, and a woman came there who had been suffering from asthma her entire life and talked to me about how there were days when the air was so bad she couldn't go outside, children there with their parents and doctors telling me exactly the same thing, and yet those who are trying to repeal this air safety rule, Senator Paul and those who support him, are arguing these doctors and patients are just wrong. So I'd like to ask you, because you were just alluding to it here, what kind of medical support do you have for your position that Senator Paul's amendment, if it passes, will endanger the lives of those who are currently suffering from asthma, pulmonary disease, and maybe even cardiovascular disease? And tell me what medical groups have come forward on one side or the other, please.
Absolutely. I don't know of any medical groups that support the Paul resolution. But I do have in my hand, and I will put in the record with unanimous consent, a letter signed by many groups, which I would like to quote from. So, Mr. President, can I have unanimous consent to place in the record this important letter from these health groups that Senator Durbin is asking about?
Without objection. So ordered.
Here's what they say in plain and simple language. Blocking the cross-state air pollution rule would force people living in downwind states to continue to suffer from high levels of unhealthy pollution from out-of-state power plants. And they say that they express their strong opposition. They say ozone and particulate matter are associated with numerous adverse health effects, including lung disease, irreversible reductions in lung function, irreversible. So it's not like you have a bad day and you're gasping for air and suddenly the next day it comes back. Irreversible reduction in lung function, asthma attacks, and by the way, we are told that there will be 400,000 cases of aggravated asthma attacks if we go back on this rule, aggravation of other respiratory and cardiovascular diseases, and I would say, Senator Durbin, they add premature death. And here they're saying 34,000 cases of premature death. So and I will give you just a few of the names of the people who signed this, and I'm so glad you came down here. You've been such a great leader on these issues, and I want to say for the record, led me and so many others, a majority of the House, in saying no more smoking in airplanes. And boy, we remember how it was in those days. And I know your personal experience with a lack of lung function in your own dad. So your coming over here today is very, very appreciated. So I'll give you the names of some of these organizations and then give you the time to ask another question.
I'm glad you're entering that record. If the Senator would yield for one more question.
I will.
It seems to me that the Republican argument from Senator Paul comes along two lines. First, air pollution doesn't hurt. So don't be worried if there's more of it. And what we have is medical evidence and testimony from the experts. He's wrong. I don't know if he presented any doctors, I'd love to know, who support that position, that air pollution doesn't cause problems. We know it does. It stands to reason it does. Medical and human experience tells us. The second argument that he's making, if you can get past the first, is this is how we're going to create jobs in America. The House of Representatives now, on 168 separate occasions, the Republican-led House of Representatives has sought to repeal those environmental protections of our air and the safety of the water that we drink, and they have bragged about it, saying when we get rid of all of these standards on air and water pollution, more Americans will go to work. I would like to ask the senator from California to respond, because the way I see it, if the Paul resolution passes, sadly, the people who will go to work are those who work in emergency rooms, those who work to make nebulizers for those suffering from asthma, people who make oxygen tanks. I'm sorry to say this, but that is the reality. If you ignore the health consequences, the jobs created will be to treat those who are going to be afflicted by pulmonary disease because of this eradication of a standard. So I'd like to ask the senator from California, talk to me about job creation and pollution.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I want you to know that since the Clean Air Act passed, and there were all these predictions of horrible recession, there's been a huge number of jobs created. And it's all documented on one of these charts here, which I will get to, and maybe I don't have it here. But I can tell you our GDP rose more than any other industrialized nation in the world as we cleaned up the air. Now, you and I were on a trip to China. We did not see the sun for days and days and days. Interestingly, and this is, I don't know if you missed this or caught this story in the New York Times, the Chinese elites in the government, many of whom we met with there to try and push our agenda, which is trade with China and all the other things we want and making sure their currency is, is floating. This is what we learn. Chinese leaders are largely insulated from Beijing's famously foul air. In the Great Hall there, they've got all these fabulous clean air devices. In their homes, they're protected. In their cars, they're protected. But guess what? The people are suffering and struggling. They don't even get to see the sunshine there. So if I could say, I don't want to see elitism here. Every single person in our country deserves to have a chance to breathe clean air. And to get specifically to your point, to talk about the economy, because I think that's critical, Senator Paul's resolution is bad for this economy. It's bad for jobs. It's bad for our families. That's why it's opposed by every health professional. And let me say this. We're talking about 400,000 cases of aggravated asthma attacks if this resolution passes. We're talking about 34,000 cases of premature death. And I want to make a point here. If you're the head of household and you die prematurely because of filthy, polluted, poison air that's floating in from another state, you can't work and your family's in deep, deep trouble. So I will tell you this. The annual benefits by 2014, annual, of this rule are estimated to be $280 billion a year. So anyone stands up here and says, we're fighting for jobs, we're fighting for the people, we're fighting for the economy, by rolling back clean air rules, don't believe it for a minute. And if you don't want to listen to me or Senator Durbin, listen to the people I know you respect, from the American Association of Cardiovascular Rehabilitation, the American College of Preventive Medicine, the American Lung Association, the American Nurses Association. Those nurses have held those babies. How much time remains on our side?
The senator's time is 5 seconds.
I hope we will resoundingly vote down the Paul resolution.
Senator's time has expired. Wields time.
I rise, Mr. President.
Senator, the junior senator from Kentucky is recognized.
I rise in support of clean air, clean water, electricity, and jobs. Interestingly, the other side hasn't read the EPA versus North Carolina opinion that says that the regulations were not overturned. We're arguing for keeping in place the current regulations. We're just arguing that we not be overzealous and that we not add $2 billion on top of the current regulations. We have $2 trillion worth of regulations heaped on our economy, 14 million people out of work, 2 million new people out of work since this president came into power. We cannot allow this administration to continue with their job-killing regulations. We can have a clean environment and we can have jobs. We are arguing for the existing regulations. We are arguing against placing additional burdens. We are arguing for the existing regulations. They don't seem to get it, so they make up all these numbers. All of their numbers are completely fictitious because they don't account for the current regulations that would still be in place if we don't increase these regulations. This is about whether or not we can have a balanced approach in our society, whether or not we can have a clean environment and have jobs. What I'm arguing for here is some reasonableness.
Senator's time has expired. Under the previous order, the Senate will resume consideration of the motion to proceed to Senate Joint Resolution 6, which the clerk will report.
Motion to proceed to the consideration of Senate Joint Resolution 6, disapproving the rules submitted by the Federal Communications Commission with respect to regulating the Internet and broadband industry practices.
Under the previous order, there will be 5 minutes of debate equally divided between the two leaders or their designees. Who yields time? If no one yields time, time will be charged equally to both sides.
Madam President.
The Senator from Texas.
Madam President, over the past 20 years, the Internet has grown and flourished without burdensome regulations from Washington. With the strength of free market forces behind it, the Internet has been an open platform for innovation. It has spurred business development, much-needed job creation, in fact, millions, hundreds of millions of jobs. If we're going to keep an open and free Internet and keep the jobs it spawns, we should reject the FCC regulation on net neutrality. The FCC reversed its successful hands-off approach last December by passing net neutrality rules where the FCC has essentially granted itself power over all forms of communication, including the Internet. Congress did not explicitly delegate this authority to the FCC, and it is our responsibility to hold on to the power and the responsibility that we have to only authorize regulations where they are needed and not where unelected agencies decide on their own that something needs to be done that Congress has not, in its congressional and constitutional responsibility, decided are necessary. These regulations on broadband providers establish the FCC as the Internet's gatekeeper, a role for which government is not really suited when innovation could be stifled. Instead of spending their resources on new job-creating investments, on new products, on new services, Internet providers are going to have to spend money on lawyers and lobbyists to comply with and go through the processes that the FCC will require. Congress has never given the FCC this authority. Regulators and bureaucrats all across the government are overstepping their bounds in many areas, the NMB, the NLRB, the EPA, and it's time for Congress to push back, and we can do it today. Regulators should not regulate without Congress's explicit authority. The Court said so in the Comcast case.
The Senator's time has expired.
Madam President, the success of the Internet should not be tampered with. We need to pass Resolution 6 that is before us today. Thank you, and I yield the floor.
Madam President. The senator from Texas.
Have the yeas and nays been called for?
They have not.
I ask for the yeas and nays.
Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. The yeas and nays are ordered.
And, Madam President, what about our second vote on the other Congressional Review Act?
That will take consent. That will take consent to order the yeas and nays.
I ask for the yeas and nays on that one as well.
Is there objection to ordering the yeas and nays? Without objection, is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. The yeas and nays are ordered. Yes, J. Rez. The clerk will call the roll on the motion to proceed to S.J. Res. Resolution 6.
Mr. Akaka, Mr. Alexander, Ms. Ayotte,
Yeah.
Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Baucus, Mr. Begich, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Bingaman, Mr. Blumenthal, Mr. Blunt, Mr. Bozeman, Mrs. Boxer, Mr. Brown of Massachusetts, Mr. Brown of Ohio, Mr. Burr, Ms. Cantwell, Mr. Cardin, Mr. Carper, Mr. Casey, Mr. Chambliss, Mr. Coates, Mr. Coburn, Mr. Cochran, Ms. Collins, Mr. Conrad, Mr. Coons, Mr. Corker, Mr. Cornyn, Mr. Crapo, Mr. DeMint, Mr. Durbin, Mr. Enzi, Mrs. Feinstein, Mr. Franken, Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mrs. Hagan, Mr. Harkin, Mr. Hatch, Mr. Heller, Mr. Hoven, Mrs. Hutchison, Mr. Inhofe, Mr. Inouye, Mr. Isaacson, Mr. Johans, Mr. Johnson of Wisconsin, Mr. Johnson of South Dakota, Mr. Kerry, Mr. Kirk, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Cole, Mr. Kyle, Ms. Landrieu, Mr. Lautenberg, Mr. Leahy, Mr. Lee, Mr. Levin, Mr. Lieberman, Mr. Lugar,
there he is right there.
Mr. Manchin, Mr. McCain, Mrs. McCaskill, Mr. McConnell, Mr. Menendez, Mr. Merkley, Ms. Mikulski, Mr. Moran, Ms. Murkowski, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Nelson of Nebraska, Mr. Nelson of Florida, Mr. Paul, Mr. Portman, Mr. Pryor, Mr. Reed of Rhode Island, Mr. Reed of Nevada, Mr. Risch, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Rockefeller,
She's doing great.
Mr. Rubio, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Sessions, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Shelby, Ms. Snow, Ms. Stabenow, Mr. Tester, Mr. Thune, Mr. Toomey, Mr. Udall of Colorado, Mr. Udall of New Mexico, Mr. Vitter, Mr. Warner, Mr. Webb, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Senators voting in the affirmative: Alexander, Coates, Cornyn, Inhofe, Isaacson, Johans, Kyle, Lugar, Paul, and Sessions. Senators voting in the negative: Akaka, Boxer, Hagan, and Klobuchar. Mr. Rockefeller, no. Mr. Nelson of Nebraska, no. Mr. Lee, aye. Mr. McConnell, aye. Mr. Risch, aye. Mr. Leahy, No. Mr. Kirk. Mr. Kirk, aye. Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nelson of Florida, no. Mr. Durbin. Mr. Durbin, no. Mr. Moran. Mr. Moran, aye. Mr. Conrad? Mr. Conrad, no. Mr. Grassley? Mr. Grassley, aye. Mrs. Murray? Mrs. Murray, no. Mr. Carper? Mr. Carper, no. Mr. Roberts? Mr. Roberts, aye. Mr. Brown? Mr. Brown of Massachusetts, aye. Mr. Rubio? Mr. Rubio, aye. Mr. Corker? Mr. Corker, aye. Mr. Brown of Ohio? No. Mr. Bingaman? Mr. Bingaman? No. Mr. Reed? Mr. Reed of Rhode Island? No. Mr. Cardin? Mr. Cardin? No. Mr. Hoven? Mr. Hoven? Aye. Mr. Cochran? Mr. Cochran? Aye. Mr. Vitter? Mr. Vitter? Aye. Mr. Wyden? Mr. Wyden? No. Mr. Bennett? Mr. Bennett? No. Mr. Baucus? Mr. Baucus? No. Mr. Carey? Mr. Carey? No. Mr. Crapo, Mr. Crapo, aye. Mr. Cole, Mr. Cole, no. Mr. Hatch, Mr. Hatch, aye. Mr. Johnson, Mr. Johnson of Wisconsin, aye. Ms. Collins, Ms. Collins, aye. Mr. Tester, Mr. Tester, no. Mr. Harkin, Mr. Harkin, no. Mrs. Shaheen, Mrs. Shaheen, no. Mr. Enzi, Mr. Enzi, aye. Mr. Warner, Mr. Warner, no. Ms. Mikulski, Ms. Mikulski, no. Mr. Burr, Mr. Burr, aye. Mr. DeMint, Mr. DeMint, aye. Mrs. Gillibrand, Mrs. Gillibrand, no. Mr. Coons, Mr. Coons, no. Mr. Bozeman, Mr. Bozeman, aye. Mr. Graham, Mr. Graham, aye. Mr. Shelby, Mr. Shelby, aye. Mr. Heller, Mr. Heller, aye. Mr. Franken, Mr. Franken, no. Mr. Sanders, Mr. Sanders, no. Mr. Toomey, Mr. Toomey, aye. Mr. Coburn, Mr. Coburn, aye. Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wicker, aye. Mr. Casey, Mr. Casey, no. Ms. Stabenow, Ms. Stabenow, no. Ms. Ayotte, Ms. Ayotte, aye. Mr. Webb, Mr. Webb, no. Mrs. McCaskill, Mrs. McCaskill, no. Ms. Snow, Ms. Snow, aye. Mrs. Feinstein, Mrs. Feinstein, no. Mr. Portman, Mr. Portman, aye. Mr. Begich, Mr. Begich, no. Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Barrasso? Aye. Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Blumenthal? No. Mr. Johnson? Mr. Johnson of South Dakota? No. Mr. Lieberman? Mr. Lieberman? No. Mr. Udall? Mr. Udall of New Mexico? No. Mr. Pryor? Mr. Pryor? No. Mr. Whitehouse? Mr. Whitehouse? No. Mr. Chambliss? Mr. Chambliss? Aye. Mr. Blunt? Mr. Blunt? Aye. Mrs. Hutchison? Mrs. Hutchison? Aye. Ms. Cantwell? Ms. Cantwell? No. Ms. Murkowski? Ms. Murkowski? Aye. Ms. Landrieu? Ms. Landrieu? No. Mr. Thune? Mr. Thune? Aye. Mr. Udall? Mr. Udall of Colorado? No. Mr. Lautenberg? Mr. Lautenberg? No. Mr. Menendez? Mr. Menendez? No. Mr. Levin? Mr. Levin? No. Mr. Reed? Mr. Reed of Nevada? No. Mr. Merkley? Mr. Merkley? No. Mr. Manchin? Mr. Manchin? No. Mr. Schumer, Mr. Schumer, no.
Are there any senators wishing to vote or to change their vote? Seeing none, on the ayes are 46, the nays are 52. The motion is not agreed to. On the previous order, the Senate resumes consideration on the motion to proceed to S.J. Res. 27. And there will be 2 minutes of debate, equally divided in the usual form. Who's doing this? May we have order in the Senate? Who yields time? The senator from Kentucky. Senators?
I rise